On our journey, we can become very interested in the idea of abundance, especially in the spiritual community. So we're going to talk about the 5 forms of abundance that we might perceive in our life. So on the journey, we can become quite tight around the idea of abundance, can't we? We all want it. We all recognize that we want abundance, but there are 5 ways that I've noticed that abundance can come into our life. Some people differ and, they have a really good idea of abundance too. So this is just to be taken with a pinch of salt, but this is just my experience, The first form of abundance that we can experience in this existence is material wealth. We recognize this. Now, we can get attached to the idea of wanting material wealth. One great wise person said one time that when it comes to creating abundance for ourselves, what we should do is pick the highest ideal for our life and commit to that. Naturally, the material abundance will come. Some people call it divine purpose. I've called it that before. But some people have this really worldly view of it, of just picking the best thing that you can do. It's okay to fail. I know that in me. I failed at many things before this. And in fact, I quite enjoy the idea of failure and failing big. Because in time, the more you fail, the more you realize, I'm not failing, I'm just learning. So this is the first one, material abundance, because physical money can bring you opportunities. Some people say it takes money to make money, right? And whilst that's not true, it can help. We want to invest in the stock market perhaps, and therefore we need money to do that. We want to save for retirement, and therefore we need money to do that. We want to build businesses and change the world, and therefore we need money to do that. So this can be the first idea of abundance inside of ourselves, but please do not fall for the trap that I fell for, which is that this is the only form of abundance in our life, because sometimes we don't have that monetary abundance, and then therefore who gets affected? Well, me, emotionally, mentally, inside. And then we're not a match for abundance anyway when we're in that state. Before I tell you the second one, I just want to highlight or bring your attention to the free offerings that we have down below. The first one is free yoga. There's a free breathing practice that you can sign up for down below as well. And there's also a free community of like-minded awakening souls going through the same experience as you. And it's great to just have that support network when we recognize that perhaps our family members don't understand what's going on, our friends don't understand what's going on with us. So it can be good to connect to that Sangha, that group of like-minded individuals down below. As well, there's some awakening coaching, one-to-one coaching that you can sign up for me. The application form is down below. The application form is free to fill out, but the coaching itself isn't free. So the second form of abundance that we might experience in our life is emotional well-being and fulfillment. So where does this come from? Well, coincidentally in my life, my experience of emotional well-being comes from the absence of overly negative thought patterns. We in time can begin to train ourselves out of these, and that's why we do the yoga down below, or the breathing breath work that's also down below. Because in time it increases the amount of prana we have in the system. Prana means energy, right? Life force. And the more of that life force that we're taking in from life, the more of life that we have inside of ourselves, the less we want to disturb it with negative thinking patterns. Now, don't get me wrong. We're always going to have some element of negativity, some element of contrast inside of ourselves. Otherwise, we don't grow. And so don't think this is me saying that I never have a negative thought, because I do. In fact, sometimes we recognize that when we start this journey, we might have more negative thoughts than we did before. Why? Because it's new to us. But in time, as we train the nervous system to take more of life in, more of that existential quality of life, the thing that's beyond the mind and these mental thinkings, then we recognize that this is our next form of abundance. That mental and emotional well-being that is created through consistent practice in a spiritual way, our consistent practice of our sadhana, meaning the practices that bring about the highest aliveness and intensity of energy in the nervous system. Number 3, and this one took me a long time. The ability to fully experience love and compassion. Now, we recognize sometimes at the start of the journey, we have been taught by our parents into a vibration of somewhat narcissism sometimes, because perhaps our parents told us we can have whatever we want. And that is true, but it didn't come with the training to be able to get whatever it is that we wanted. They just said it and hoped that we would not turn into another one of them. But in time we recognize that we've taken on their conditioning, and we do end up turning into another version of them if we don't do the work to clear that software from inside of ourselves, that conditioning-based software. So the ability to fully experience love and compassion. Sometimes the conditioning of a family can be that of neglect, can be that of control, and therefore in these ideas and these principles there is the absence of love most of the time, isn't there? And whilst that's sad, it's not the final stop, because I recognize in some degree this in my life, and we can work our way out of that. This love and compassion that we're talking about here isn't familial love. It isn't even relational love. It's unconditional love. And that can be sometimes a hard idea for us to get our mind around. And it's good that it's a difficult concept for the mind to grab hold of, because it isn't a concept. It is what we are. We are that unconditional love and that unconditional compassion towards other people. But we're not that sometimes at the start of the journey in our experience. We're always that from the ultimate view, but in our experience, we aren't that. We're not experiencing unconditional love, unconditional joy, unconditional compassion, because it's just not part of our vibration currently, because our vibration is currently steeped in the ideas and concepts of control. Manipulation maybe, in some cases, and it's all innocent. We don't realize why we're doing it. That's why Jesus once says, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And it's true. Unconscious people don't know what they're doing. That's the whole idea of unconscious. But here on this path we become strong, right? And we want to become conscious of the things that are holding ourselves away or separate from that feeling of love and compassion. And so that's the third sign, or the third form of abundance we might experience in our life. The fourth one is feeling joy and the ability to spread that joy into others. Now, of course, if we feel joy, that's abundance, isn't it? We love the feeling of joy, that feeling of unwavering clarity, of subtle happiness and peace mixing together that are just one step away from exhilaration inside of ourselves. This is kind of what we're talking about. And if we can have that for ourselves, then great. And then naturally from that joy will spring the intention or the want or the desire to give that joy to other people. Not to people please though, because we recognize people pleasing is actually just another subtle form of control. Let me tell you this nice thing so that I get something back from you, maybe validation, maybe something nice. And so this is in direct contrast to that joy that is our natural joy. I think the yogis called it, I can't remember for the life of me now, Vishoka. I think that's what the natural joy is that they're talking about here. And so this is what we're going for. The fifth, before I go there actually, I just want to dive a little bit more into the sharing with others. No need to force ourselves to share kindness with other people. It has to come from within, isn't it? It has to come from that natural space of joy. We have to want to do it for ourselves. I want to share my joy because in the seeing of your joy, I gain more joy. It's selfish really, isn't it? It's unconditionally selfish, but in the right way. So the fifth and final one, although there are others, because another form of abundance could be synchronicity. That is a form of abundance, and it's linked to this one as well. Another form of abundance I've heard some people say is trade, and that's true. I've traded some things for other things that were necessary for me on my journey, and that felt great to be able to trade that thing that I didn't really want anymore for something that I really did want. This is maybe a form of abundance. But the fifth one that I want to dive into here is spiritual abundance. Well, what does that mean? It means to know your deep, to know how deeply connected you are to the universe or God or life or divine energy or source or whatever words it is that we want to use, Allah, Brahman, doesn't matter. They all mean the same thing. Now, when I say to know, I say that in contrast to believe. Sometimes we think this journey is about believing things. Belief in things and believing things, and it's not. This isn't about beliefs at all. This is about personal experience. This is why I try to the best of my ability, although some of my early videos didn't do this, to talk about things that only that I am experiencing. To not sort of take parts of things I've read from books and talk about them, because then it's not my experience yet. Most of the things that I talked about in some of the earlier videos, though, are now my experience, so it's okay for me to speak about them now. But that's the journey of authenticity, right? We learn as we go. We're all learning as we go. So to know rather than believe that we are deeply connected to existence, to life. That's spiritual abundance. And how do we know? We feel it. And so how might that deep spiritual connection to life, God, and the universe feel? It's sacred, right? It's intense sometimes. And that's how we recognize that we're spiritually abundant. These wonderful, beautiful feelings come and touch us softly on the shoulder as a little kiss from God to say, keep going. You're loved. And this is what we're talking about with spiritual abundance. I hope this helps. If you have any extra forms of abundance that you recognize in your life that you want to put down below in the comments, that would be great. I'd love to hear them. Also, if you press the bell icon down below, you'll get notified of my videos straight away. Please smash the like button because it really helps the YouTube algorithm, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Namaste.